Hi there, thank you for joining in to episode 1 of the Strike a Chord podcast. On today's show, I'll be joined with Elliot from Suffolk Punk band TUNDRA, along with This Feeling and God Hates Astronauts' Chris France, and finally, BBC Cambridge veteran Tom Simkins. On today's show, we feature topics such as mental health in the music industry, along with other sensitive matters, so please be prepared for that. Thank you, and enjoy the podcast. Hello and welcome to the Strike a Chord podcast with me, Danny Kingsley. Today we're joined by three people from, I'd say, the local music scene. Is that fair to say?
I'd say so.
Yeah.
If you can just go around and introduce yourselves and what your involvement is on the local scene, if that's cool.
Right. Hi, I'm Chris. I used to be in a band called God Hates Astronauts, and now I'm just like a big fan of music and just go to loads of shows. I work with This Feeling in Cambridge as well, doing repping and stuff, and I just keep as busy as possible.
Cool. I'm Tom Simkins. I used to present BBC Introducing Cambridgeshire. I've been involved in the local scene since I was 15, so for a huge amount of time. And I'm a bit of a nerd on local music.
I'm Elliot. I'm from the local Suffolk band TUNDRA. I'm a musician who likes music and knows a bit about it from the local area. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you guys. We're going to start off today on the first episode with a question from the box. Who'd like to pick and read the first ever question from the box?
Yeah, go on. Are we being realistic telling children that they can be the next big thing? No.
I tend to agree.
I don't know, I think it's a tricky one. I don't think we should be building people up to kind of be knocked down, but equally, should you ever diminish a young person's aspiration to go out and fulfil whatever they want to do?
Yeah, I agree, definitely.
The thing is, I started actually writing a bit of a kind of article about this. I'm not quite sure what it's going to be for yet, but I think that kind of promoting this idea of people this kind of big rock star idea of going out and private jets and buses is pretty toxic for the scene, because people kind of have that expectation. It makes people jealous when other people achieve things, and
do you think that the scene, or just in general careers, are a lot of
it's
time money driven because of that?
People start bands with the intention of making it a career kind of straight away. It's not going to go well at all, because I mean, there's not money to be made. Not everyone starts life as Billie Eilish with a big old musical background and can kind of just go straight into the industry, and it's hard work to get there. And I think many of us know, even after a few years of doing it, it's definitely not making enough money to pay bills straight away, and it's not a job. It's a hobby that we will hope that will eventually turn into a job.
I think everything at its core has got to start with passion. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
100%.
You wouldn't get into a band, I don't think, unless you are passionate about it, because I think there are certain realisms, like you were saying, about the lack of pay there, and having to put yourself out there at a loss sometimes to go do shows that maybe aren't that beneficial to you, but at the time you want to get experience under your belt. I think going back to that point, there's got to be a certain amount of realism about it. I don't think we should ever trash people's aspirations to be the next big thing, but I totally agree with all of you, and I think a big part of that should be less bound to kind of money-driven kind of aspirations, and more actually about success based on being amazing at music and doing something incredible that kind of is so passionate for them, that then translates to people who then find that passion within that music.
I think of all of the situations where being told that they're going to be the next big thing that I've seen, I think the biggest problem is about parents being realistic. I've seen a lot of people who have been pushed by their parents into believing that they're going to be the next big thing because their parents say that you're the best fucking guitarist in the world, or whatever it might be, And I think it's less so about people who are in the industry, because we all understand where it, me myself, I understand that my band isn't going to get big until we write a song that is a classic 4-chord song. It's a pop song. It's going to get into the charts. It's going to get us on a Spotify curated playlist. The BBC will pick it up or something like that. In the same way that Slaves have done it. All of these big bands who've just shot up the scene. Royal Blood. it's about being that niche market that is going to get you to be this like world famous, well not world famous, but nationally famous person.
On that topic, there's bands such as like Tool who have a cult following
Yeah.
instead. That's still fame, but in a very different way to
Yeah.
it is in mainstream.
Definitely.
Do you feel like that's where you guys as a band sort of would more prefer to fit in? Because you could go out and just write a
Absolutely.
full chord song.
I think with us, it's about just basically doing what we want to do. Like, I don't give a shit if someone doesn't like our band. Like, there's been multiple times where we've had a gig and someone's come up to us and said, I don't like what you said, and it's like, cool, don't watch us then.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I would prefer it to be a load of people that like the music that we write and also how we are as people, rather than just liking the fact that we're, like big.
Absolutely,
I
there's a bit more credibility to that, isn't there?
Yeah, like when it comes to cult following, I think there's a lot of problems when there's a cult following, because you've got people who can be a bit too obsessed,
Mm-hmm.
like there can be people who like love you a bit too much than you kind of deserve, because in reality we're all just like normal people,
There's a sense of pressure in that as well, isn't
Absolutely, and so for me it's just I don't care who likes our music or whatever it is. It's like if they like our songs, they can like our songs. If you want to be a cult follower, you can be a cult follower, but don't like infringe on our own personal lives and that sort of thing.
Absolutely,
That's the problem I have with
100%.
cult followings.
Yeah. I think just to go back to the question a little bit in terms of, do you think that teachers have a responsibility to just when they're educating children on music, just they can have the admiration, as we've said, and say you can have these long careers and you can be cultural icons, but you've got to work hard. Do you think that there's a sense of responsibility that should come from that?
Definitely. They should be kind of, telling people that there's a big chance that it might not work out. But I think also there should be kind of a lot more thought into pushing people into that industry, but saying, right, maybe you're not going to be the next big thing, but equally there's so many other roles within that industry that you could fulfill with your creative talent, that you could bring something to the industry. Like, how many writers, are out there, not necessarily names that you would think of if you were thinking off the top of your head, but writing huge songs for big artists. That's surely success in its own right.
That's an interesting point, because I don't remember any time when I was at school or even when I was at university studying music, did nobody say, oh, you could be crew, you could be sound engineer. These are all other options in the industry.
For introducing, we spent a lot of time doing outreach projects, so we would go and do talks for schools, for seminars. And I remember we did a seminar with in Peterborough, and one of the big things we wanted to do with that was actually to be like, right, we know not all of you want to be musicians who are here. You're here to kind of experience this day and get a bit of a gauge of what other careers are out there. So we spent a lot of time being like to these kids, what do you want to do? What do you enjoy? And I think a lot of them, it's the first time anyone had said to them, what do you want to do? And we spent a lot of time talking about, as you were saying, being crew, being a lighting tech, being a sound tech, being behind the scenes. And I think so many of these people went away from this going, there's real genuine avenues for me in this industry that don't inquire me to be, this massive superstar person. I can support someone like that.
100%,
I think as well, like, when it comes down to being a tech or something, I'm the majority of the friends that like we have in the band and so on are techs, not musicians. They're all techs. They're all people behind the scenes, and from meeting them through college or whatever it might be. And in reality, it's more realistic that you're going to get a better job by doing a job like that, because there is space for you. There's a lot more people who are going to be sound techs than there are going to be famous musicians.
That's very true.
Who are and in reality, and they do earn like a lot of money.
But also pivotal as well to a show's performance.
Absolutely, it's like they wouldn't be there without the band, but the band wouldn't be there without them. It's like it's a whole industry that like you need to respect that a musician is nowhere near as kind of important as their manager or like the sound technician who's doing them, or the runner who's just running from the sound desk to the stage or whatever it might be. You all play a very vital part within it, and like I personally have a very big problem with musicians who shit talk sound engineers if they're fucking up or whatever it might be, because like of all the people who should understand that like what's going on within that situation, whether it be like you're getting bad feedback or whatever it is, a musician should understand that you know, the people who are working behind the scenes are trying their absolute hardest most of the time. Sometimes they're not, obviously.
Do you feel with that in mind, like that there's an onus on the bands to actually go and find that crew member, that sound tech, so that when they go to venues that maybe they don't know, they can take someone who they trust to take care of their mix to be able to add to that? Because this is something I always think about. It's like, you know, a house sound tech can be great, but if they don't know your band, there's going to be certain things they're going to miss. Is there value, you know, in actually sourcing someone and spending a bit of extra money to take someone along you know is going to absolutely kill your sound?
We bring one of our mates, Bill. He does sound at the John Peel Centre. He does it at Hunter Club, like all over. And we bring him with us when we're a bit unsure as to what we're in for. He might not be doing the sound, but he'll be there to, and we'll say to the sound technician or whatever it is, this is Bill, he sometimes does our sound, he like works with us. Is it okay if he's just with you on the sound desk? Or if it's not, then fine, like don't worry. And most of the time they're always like, yeah, that's completely fine. And they'll actually ask for his opinion as to like, oh, how should I make this sound? And I think a lot of sound engineers like the fact that like you're bringing someone to like help them out, because in reality you're just trying to help out this in-house sound engineer. But some people get a bit arsey with it, and those are the people that we watch out for.
Well, I think that's it. At the end of the day, the in-house sound tech wants to do the best job possible, because ultimately it's their reputation being the house sound tech. But at the same time, totally. But at the same time, I guess, you know, it must be really nice to have that support network from someone else coming in.
I know we spoke about sort of technicians in general, but coming from someone who's works in promotions and has done promotions before, do you find that the lines between the people running the show and the musicians themselves can sometimes
I've seen quite a few musicians in my time that could just kind of have this big kind of grandiose idea of who they are and what they mean to the show, and not really realise the amount of effort that goes into behind it, and the kind of intricate details that goes into putting on a show, and the actual effort that goes on before, and people that just kind of rock up on the night, play the show, and maybe make like a Facebook post on the day and make no effort beforehand. But there is so much that goes into a show beyond just what happens on the night, and I think there needs to be more kind of appreciation of that from everyone. And if everyone pulls in together to make a better show, then everyone benefits. Really, there's more tickets sold, more better connections made, more people making friends, and less people shit talking each other.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are we ready for another question?
Yeah, go for it.
Chris, do you want to do the honours this time?
Yeah, go on. Should famous acts be doing more to help young musicians?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I think this is quite a consensus on this one, isn't it?
Everyone started somewhere, haven't they? They've had to earn their dues. I think it's so important that they look back to where they started and then in turn give something back.
I had a conversation with you not too long ago actually about something similar about this. He's not my classic example of who I'd use. Definitely not the kind of thing I normally listen to. But Ed Sheeran.
Yes, yeah.
Recently, he did the. He did this big thing.
5 nights at Chantry Park, was it?
Yeah.
I had so many friends who were on the support slots. It was insane.
I know, and it just imagine being booked for a lineup like that. It's like just kind of a big step into the massive industrial, commercial world of music. Mm-hmm. It's a big step up, and I love that. If you go to the Portland and watch a band nowadays. That you can end up having like a local band support, and bands do actually get to support their favourite bands, the people they listen to nowadays. Partially I'd love it if just bands stopped doing tour support altogether and just had supports in individual local cities. But
that would be beneficial. Yeah.
I mean, I'd really like to ask both of you, as like guys who've done promotion, when you're looking to book a bigger band, what is the protocol? Because is it said, right, we're bringing our support band? Are you guys ever given the option to say we'd also like a local support? How does that work?
Personally, with myself, if I'm booking a headline band for a show, whether it's just a one-off of one of my shows or whether it's for the festival, it will be ran the way I run it, and the lineup will be cultivated by myself. If they're not happy with that, then I'm not going to book them. That's they've got to trust in the fact that I'm the promoter and I'm booking them because I've built a lineup around them, and not only around them, but of bands that I think will complement them as well. Yeah. So as much as I trust that they've got a tour support that they really like, that they handpicked themselves and have worked with for probably the best part of a year, but at the same time, I personally like the idea of everybody having an ample opportunity to then showcase themselves on a lineup with
I think
people.
something
of
as
that-
well for
of that
me.
age
I mean,
group.
I often when I book bands and actually things I've got in the runs now, like I get a little bit, I don't know, rose tinted spectacles. I'll end up thinking that the band I'm booking is maybe bigger than they are, just because I'm like a massive fan of them. And so I always kind of just make sure to double check myself and actually and get local bands on the support, because not only to kind of give them a chance to shine in front of potentially a new bigger audience, but also because they do sell tickets and they put the effort in, and if they're being put on a lineup that they care about, and if you're doing them like a fair ticket split kind of deal where everyone's getting paid properly, then they'll put the effort in, and going back to this kind of, if everyone works together, it makes everything better.
I mean, I guess in turn though, from a band perspective, have there ever been situations for you guys where you feel like you've been just kind of ticking a quota box in supporting a bigger band?
Oh,
Just being the kind of the local band on the
Absolutely,
bill
yeah.
for the sake of it.
100%.
Yeah.
I think the difficult thing with us as a band is that we're spread across 4 different counties, so we're not really a local band anywhere anymore. So it's hard to get even those sort of supports. But when we do, it does feel as though it's definitely like not disingenuous. It's still appreciated on our end, but it's very much, we think you can sell tickets here. And these tickets we need to sell because they haven't been done. They haven't done as well as we thought they would a lot of the time. I don't know.
I think,
if it's the
like
same
with
for you.
us, if we've got, for instance, a headline show or something, usually we'll say to the promoter, would you mind putting forward this band? Because we want to support that band. Like, we've had multiple times where we've played with a smaller band, it might be their first, second gig or something, or we've seen them at a random gig that we've gone to, and we've said, look, do you want to play with us one day? Like, if we've got a chance to get you on board, we'll obviously ask the promoter and hopefully we'll get you on board. And we've done that quite a few times. Obviously we're not like famous or whatever, but it's just about like, even we're trying to help, smaller bands, because we know what it's like to be that band who've got their second gig and they don't know what they're particularly doing, and we just want to help them out a bit.
I think all of it comes back to wanting to see your scene flourish, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
There's a huge
Absolutely.
amount of pride in the fact that you've come up through a scene, and then seeing the next generation come through. You want to feel like, I want to give all my knowledge that I've amassed to these guys, so maybe they'll have a few extra steps along the way that maybe we didn't get.
Definitely, and it's like with us. I remember when we kind of first started, I remember people saying to us, "Oh, you're really different," and it's like with us, our music is very kind of like Australian based, and it's something that not a lot of people in the local area had heard before. And when we hear a band who like the same sort of stuff that we do, and they play the same sort of thing that we do, we're like, yeah, we want to give you that chance to kind of like get your name heard as well, and I really, really think that having bigger bands supporting like younger bands and helping them out is like a massive bonus to the scene, because it's only going to make the scene grow more.
Like bands who get booked for those sort of support slots that you are still lucky to get. Do you feel like you're a bastion of the local scene in some way, that we've been chosen from our local scene? There could have been a lot of other people. It is a sense of, not only have you worked hard for it, but you are lucky as well. They could have been another
it's like
band
we've missed
there
out
in
on
your place.
so many like things that we've wanted to do, and we've like been speaking to, whether it be booking agents, trying to get on a support tour and finding out like there's a band that we know who've got it instead, and it's like, it is really, really difficult to like deal with, to understand, oh shit, we're not as good as we thought we were, it's like the sudden realisation of there's someone out there who's better than us. And
is that motivating though?
I think it can really, really put you down if you're not in the right headspace to deal with it.
Yeah.
And like, well, I mean, it's the same as like for any musician, like dealing with the stress of not getting what you think you deserve is really difficult.
I think it's quite a universal feeling as well. No, that goes beyond and almost transcends genre, I feel, because a lot of genre-based acts will... it's very competitive. It's not as it is in pop, where there's a sort of left side of pop, there's a right side. Whereas in, say, you particularly, Chris, you come from like hardcore and a little bit like it's fair to say, heavier music
Yeah,
than mainstream. Do you find that there is a lot of competition?
You
in
know
those
what?
Sort of specific
I haven't.
genres?
And I'm not sure quite what it is. I think mostly because they're just, at least in my area of when I was still playing in bands, is there wasn't that many, and not that I got every opportunity that was thrown, that was in our way at all. But I felt like, at least within Cambridge, any kind of heavy band, I started just kind of getting to know them, and any opportunity that they got over us, I just try and be happier for them, because people get places, you might not, and it's all kind of comes back to that working together thing. But I don't know, I never really felt a sense, I always used to feel a sense of competition, for sure, and I used to be quite a jealous person with music, but then I started making friends in the scene, and everything got a lot better from there on.
Yeah, definitely.
But
It's definitely hindsight, and you realise how much other people deserve it as well.
I used to be such a dickhead, man.
We've all been there. I feel like we've all been there at some
That's the
point.
thing. I used to be the guy at the back of the audience, just like sitting there stroking my chin, talking to my fellow bandmate about how shit the band on after us are, and like I know exactly, like what a dickhead. But like and it wasn't even coming from a place of them being a bad band. It was coming from a place of me being jealous, and I don't know what it was that kind of kicked me up the arse then, but that jealousy is just kind of disgusting, because it doesn't help anyone, it doesn't help yourself. And
what's interesting though is that you've now moved to helping other bands, so you've gone from that headspace to then turned it into a positive and being like, okay, well, I know the direction I think that they should take, so I'm willing to help them. I think that's quite an interesting turnaround.
I think it's the way things move forward, isn't it? I mean, you don't get anywhere from jealousy at all. In fact, you make a bad name for yourself, and then because musicians make friends, and that's the great thing, because we're all complex, strange, fucked up people, and that's the kind of best thing of it. And when you take that moment to realise that actually you're all kind of in this same pond together, swimming around, that if everyone pushes each other's music, if everyone works together, then it just makes for a healthier scene. And if there isn't that kind of jealousy based on opportunities, then you can just kind of be happier, because if a band from Cambridge that I don't know might even be considered like a rival band to me get signed to a major label, that's not a bad thing for me. I mean, it wasn't like I was going to get that label opportunity anyway, necessarily. It's not like it was going to be this band or that band. It's just good because a spotlight is shined on the whole area, and it makes people start taking notice. Because
on that point, I do want to get Tom's opinion, because you must have seen quite a lot of I don't think jealousy is the word in broadcasting, but definitely I think competition is the right way to put it. You must have seen a lot of competition from young bands who are doing similar things.
It's really weird. Like I don't know whether I'd call it jealousy or competition. I think it's youthful self-confidence.
Okay.
It's a really diplomatic way to put it.
Yeah.
That's such a BBC way to put it.
But no, but you know what I mean? 'Cause it's really interesting listening to what you were saying there, and kind of that attitude of, surely when you come out of the bedroom and you've written these songs that you're hugely personal to you, it's you pouring your heart out necessarily for the first time, where you're going to feel super, super passionate about it.
Yeah.
I think there is kind of, especially when you haven't got that gigging experience, there's that kind of thing in the back of your head that makes you go, oh, we've done really well and all this, and kind of put yourself on that pedestal. But I think going back to what you're saying, I think ultimately if the scene thrives, everyone thrives. Because,
that's a very good point,
if that band gets that opportunity over you, but you've been really good friends with them in the scene, surely that's going to come back around at some point. If they get an opportunity, they're going to be more inclined to say, you know what, we worked with these guys coming up, we want to work with them again now when we've got the opportunity to give them a platform. But it's interesting about the rock scene, I think, certainly from an outside perspective, you see more venues now, not necessarily a bad thing, focusing more on kind of indie and indie pop, because they know that's an audience that will be pretty safe, kind of come in, have the drinks, go home. I think the metal community and even the hip hop community certainly has like a bit of a stigma around it.
100%.
With the audience that are going to turn up for shows, maybe with rock and roll kind of bands, that old school mentality of, sex, drugs and rock and roll, with the hip hop crowd, maybe kind of tarnished with being a bit more kind of, I don't know, drug related and such, which from knowing so many people in the hip hop crowd, is not necessarily the case at all. But then I think those scenes as a result then kind of, find their own niche somewhere else. So, as you were saying, coming up, you end up spending a lot of time with people within your own scene because you try and find those scenes. Yeah. And I think once you've found those scenes and you're kind of part of it and part of that family, certainly within the rock community I know around Cambridge, everyone's there to help each other because they just want their scene to thrive and get out of
Yeah.
its
And it's
niche and
lovely,
start being
yeah.
bigger again.
Yeah.
It is almost like music scenes generally are just a Venn diagram. That's how I don't know if that's a good way to put
Yeah,
it, but
absolutely.
it's definitely getting cut out. But I'd like to move the conversation along because I do feel like we spoke a lot about live music, and I feel like we've got a lot to cover today, and I do want to kind of move away from that. So I'll ask Tom to be the next to pick
Oh,
a
let's have a
question.
go. Let's see. We got. Are 1,000 negative comments as vindicating as playing to nobody? Ooh, tough one.
People say a lot that you only put your music online. That's not the same as they did in the 60s, 70s, 80s, where they went out and they played furiously to get their career.
Because they didn't have online back in the
Yeah,
60s.
exactly, yeah. But then I think with a lot of older music crowd, it's easy for them to say, oh, like, sure, you get some heat online, but that's nothing. Like, you're not looking into those people's faces.
It's a balance, though, isn't it? Like, I think, online has given artists this massive opportunity to reach a whole new audience that, pre-internet, they'd probably never see, If you're a, up and coming UK touring band, you're going to see the UK.
Yeah.
You might venture over to Europe. Are you going to go have any impact over in America, different continents? Probably not. I think the internet's given people that opportunity to spread far and wide and to be picked up by digital radio stations in other countries.
Yeah,
but in turn, I think bands can't lose sight of the fact that ultimately, if you want to be a really good band, you need your live set absolutely killing. So when people who've heard those recordings decide, you know what, I really like this band, I want to come see them, you're going to blow them out of the park with your live performance. So I think
absolutely.
it's a total balance between getting out there, paying your dues, and becoming a really tight live band from experience of playing, but equally exploiting this amazing opportunity, which is the online market, to be able to push your music.
Has anybody here had any negative comments, any sort of, anything that made them feel vindicated at all, or just opinions expressed to them that...
Not anything that stuck with me. Not that it probably hasn't happened. I've just probably just blanked it out in the back of my mind somewhere. But I don't know. I think just it's possibly not a good habit, because if you are bad at something and someone gives you enough negative comments, maybe you should stop. But also, I don't know. I think the kind of driving forward, you always kind of remember the good stuff and fuck off the bad memories.
I think ultimately the good stuff is worth, like, every one good thing that comes through. It's worth 100 negative comments.
I
think I'm passionate
as
about
well, it's that classic saying, no publicity is bad publicity.
Yeah.
Whereas if you play to no people, that's no publicity.
Yeah. That's a really
so
good point.
so when it comes down to bad comments, we've had bad comments, of course we have. That it's good because they've noticed something about us. It means that they've taken on board something. They don't like it, but who gives a shit? They still noticed it.
People seem to dig at anything online because they have no face to their name.
Just sounds more like trolling.
There's so many bad people who are part of this industry who are just fucking cunts, and we have to fucking deal with them all the time, and you just have to fucking smile and wave, and because you've got to keep good relationships with certain people sometimes.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a really difficult thing to do.
And like, if people might not like that, I've just said that, but who gives a shit?
It's the truth.
Genuinely, our especially our band, we literally live by the fact that if you don't like us, then don't fucking listen to us. Don't come watch us.
It's not as if there's not a plethora of other music to then go out and listen
exactly.
to.
It's just I hate that bad feeling involved with like you get it all the time with the Bury St Edmunds isn't as good as it's made out to be, and it's like, yeah, that's because it's only got one fucking music venue. It's like, don't try and shit on this whole scene because you're from fucking I don't know, fucking Balham or somewhere. It's like,
I'd argue actually more kudos to the Bury scene that with one venue so many amazing bands have come out of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
100%.
it's like there's been especially Seymour and Joe had to deal with some shit not too long ago with the Hunter Club, where someone was basically talking don't get me wrong, it's good to listen to people's opinions and good to understand why people don't like it, but at the same time, what can two people do about the fact that there's only one music venue? What, you want to open another one being run by the same people? There's got to be an element of competition in order for it to work better.
Yeah.
Cambridge, there's tons of music venues. You've got the Junction, you've got obviously the bigger venues such as the Junction, Corn Exchange, whatever. And then you've got the smaller venues such as like the Blue Moon, you know, Portland Arms.
I'd argue that's about it, though. Really.
I'm going to be really controversial here
Go
about
on.
venues in Cambridge.
Go on, I'm so intrigued.
Do we think the Portland Arms? It's an amazing venue. It does amazing things. Do we think that the semi-monopoly they have on the kind of mid-card scene in Cambridge is actually detrimental to the scene?
Now, can I just chime in as someone who's promoted shows there?
Yeah.
As a promoter, you can come in and put on together your own lineup, and I feel that's where the difference is. But they won't actively go out and book bands that are necessarily.
Yeah.
I guess because I don't want to like put any heat on the Portland, because I think it's
an amazing
that
venue.
we have
Yeah.
a venue like that that is
Absolutely.
doing stuff like that. But I wonder, because I think most promoters will say, right, I want to put a gig on in Cambridge. We'll look at what's on offer. We'll say, I can't afford to rent the Junction.
I can't afford to
We'll
rent
say,
Portland, to be honest.
we'll say, maybe some of the smaller venues, maybe a bit more pub orientated and not really what you
Yeah.
want to actually get a good live night. So you're left with the Portland as your option. Now, that means that there is a huge amount of promotion companies all putting their shows on at the same venue. And this means if you look at a weekly calendar, like a gig calendar, you're going to see Portland Monday, you're going to see Portland Tuesday, you might have Wednesday off, then Thursday, Friday, Saturday. As gig going public,
Yeah.
why am I going to keep going back there unless like that band is someone I really, really want to see? Because I feel like the scene is oversaturated.
Yeah,
I feel like you want
100%.
more options.
Yeah.
No, I wrote an article for Generation magazine not too long ago, and it was kind of mostly saying that it's about this kind of monopoly. I want people to kind of play around with more venues and actually do, I don't know, put on like these DIY, bring your own PA kind of things, because I'm fed up of going to the same venues to see essentially, if you get drunk enough, it's just the same gig over and over again.
There's so
isn't
many
it?
creative spaces to do things like that in Cambridge. I think
Yeah.
there needs to be a certain out-of-the-box mentality to say, actually,
I tell you who
venues
is.
aren't the be-all and end-all.
I tell you who is doing that very well at the moment is Desperate Fleas.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
There's I don't know if you heard Desperate Fleas.
No, I haven't, no.
So it's a lady called Daryl. She's amazing. She runs this monthly sort of scratch night, she calls it, and essentially every time it's different. Sometimes it's an open mic, sometimes it's completely acoustic. Sometimes she'll set out layouts for spoken word, and then you just fill in gaps from your life, and then you come up, and everyone's encouraged to perform, and everyone's encouraged to do something differently. And I think that's something I haven't seen around here in quite a long time, and it's such a good night every time.
I really like the emergence of shows going on in churches. Like,
Yes.
As much as I
Yeah.
fear I'm going to burst into flames every time I go through the door, like, there's something just special about that, because, buildings like that have this amazing natural reverb in them, and the ambience in it is something special. I know going to shows like that, you leave afterwards with kind of a sense of wonder of just being like, wow. And I think
I feel
maybe
one
there's something.
with God.
Yeah, I think there's something to be
100%.
said about that, about actually
Yeah.
looking into spaces like that and saying, can we put a night on here? Can we do a deal with them to, maybe get costs down? And everyone goes out and has some, different experience to what they're expecting.
Yeah.
And it's not like it doesn't work either. You only need to look at Colchester Arts Centre, Norwich Arts Centre. It's like there's all
John
these.
Peel as well.
Yeah, John Peel. It's like all these places. They do well. Then they book in big bands.
To kind of keep it on this question as well about the kind of, getting 1,000 negative comments or playing to nobody, do you think as well that bands need to challenge themselves to get out of their local area and go and
100%.
find bigger audiences? Because,
100%.
if you're playing in the same area all the time, ultimately you're going to saturate your market and people will say, I saw them 2 weeks ago,
Yeah,
I'll
absolutely.
wait till the next one comes around.
Yeah.
Is actually building an audience, going out and finding a new audience rather than relying on the same 100 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what the internet helps with quite a lot as well. Is the fact that you can, if there's a promoter running a tour show in I don't know, like in Liverpool, you can message them and be like, look, here's a live video of our gig that I can send you electronically over the internet in 2 seconds. If you like us, book us. And I think it's super important to remember that it is a tool to help young musicians, but at the same time it can be quite detrimental to your growth in general, but you've still got to make the effort to go out and play. That's a big thing.
100%.
Again, it's a balancing act, because you've got to remember the scene that you've come up from,
Yeah.
but at the same time you don't want to just overkill it.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to bring it back round and go for another question, if that's okay with you guys.
Yes.
I'm going to pick one. Just narrating me picking a question. How has your involvement in the industry affected your perception of it?
Ooh. I think when we all get into it, there's the young preconception of, glitz, glamour, we're going to go on the road, we're going to go do this. And then you meet the harsh reality of it, which is, you know, actually a lot of the time, yeah, you're going to be doing what you love, but maybe not necessarily in the way you want to be doing it.
Yeah.
Like,
also, as well, when it comes down to that, like being on the road and so on, like being on the road is not fun. You know?
no, it's not if you don't have a big tour bus, because you're just going to be sat there literally opposite from someone all the way.
Especially if you're the only fucker that drives, you know, it's like
Sleeping on floors, you know, it's not...
Yeah, you know, it's like, we especially never went out to be a big famous band or anything like that. We never have like purposely put ourselves out to try and be bigger than we actually are. You know, we're not big headed. We're not trying to like make ourselves look better than we are. I think that for a lot of musicians, there's a lot of what is the word, like, you kind of come to reality a bit, you know, what it actually means to be in the scene and be in the industry. You know, it's like you'll get a lot of musicians saying it's one of the worst industries to be in, purely because the amount of upset that you have to deal with.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know,
I think it's what you take away from it though as well.
Yeah,
because I think once you have that epiphany moment where the rose-tinted glasses come off and you see the scene for what it is, I think that's actually when you start doing your best work, where actually you go, right, I know what I'm in now and I can embrace this and do what I can with it.
It's almost like your shoulders are coming above the water and you can actually see.
I think with us, that's something that we've kind of just hit. We've just hit that sudden reality of, oh yeah, it's not actually as kind of good as it's made out to be sometimes. And now we're just in it to have fun, you know? We're not in it to just make music and try and get music out onto Spotify and get it on a playlist or whatever it might be. You know, it's like we're very lucky because we got a manager and he deals with all that sort of the shit stuff that you have to deal with when you're in a band. So it means that we can go out and just piss about and have fun, and we can write songs that we want to write.
Quite evident that you do that as well. Every time I've either booked you to play or played with you, you always have fun. That's like
well, you know, it's like even if the audience doesn't like give too much of a shit that you're there, it's like then you take the piss out of the audience. You know, it's like you play with it. You know, being a musician isn't just playing music; it's about being a performer. You know, you've got to be able to entice people to actually watch you rather than just listen to you. Like for me personally, having a good like physical show, being able to look and see a band that you're interested in is more important than how you sound.
Yeah, 100%.
Hence why we don't sound very good. You know, it's like because a lot of people when they see us, they're like, oh yeah, I love how energetic you are. I'm like, yeah, exactly. You like how we are. You know, you don't.
That's a really good compliment as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want people coming up to me and like, oh yeah, your songs are really good, because I know they're not as good as some people's. You know, it's like, that's the reality of being a musician. You always think everyone else is better than you. You know?
That's a very
But it's the one thing that I'm really proud about our band is the fact that we are quite interesting to watch. You know, and one reason is because, you know, like, we fucking piss about on stage, and it means that we play the wrong stuff and we fuck up. We always fuck up, but that's what it is to be in a band. It's about having fun with your mates and doing shit.
If you're not having fun, then you probably shouldn't be in a band
Yeah.
doing it anymore.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
You've got, ultimately, I think, watching bands as long as I have as well, like, you know, you can tell when someone's not genuine. You can tell when someone's on stage and they're like, I don't really want to be here. And it's turned me off artists before. I've been like, I've heard your demos, I think you're really good, I came to see you live and I was not impressed.
There's actually a few bands that I've seen that I thought, at first I wasn't massive into their music, but whether it's just because it wasn't the stuff I normally listen to, and then it grows on you afterwards, but just because their live performance is great. You guys especially, you guys are very, very energetic, and you go a bit insane. I think I've seen you be sick 4 times after gigs. Yeah. Another big example for me is a big example is Courtney from Juno. I think she's a phenomenal front person.
But something like that, if you catch that energy, you're in as a fan.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, right, I'm on board, I'm going to get down with this band.
I think that's, I think definitely, Elliot, I'm 100% supporting what you're saying about, you know, what I've learned from kind of going into the industry is that the scene is, it's, it is to a degree about the music, but it's, you know, if you're going to be, you can write great music, but if you stand there holding the microphone for a, 25-minute set, then I'm not going to watch you again.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, if you're paying, even if it's only, £4 or £5 for a ticket, it's, going to be probably a crappy pub, something somewhere, but you want to put on a spectacle, something that's actually going to make people want to buy your merch, to come and see you again, to actually be a fan.
Yeah.
It's about the effort you put in.
Like, don't get me wrong, there are some artists that don't need to have that sort of stage presence,
Yeah.
They don't need to do that, like, such as Kainos,
Oh, yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
it would be completely wrong for them to be, like, us on stage because of their music, because for them it is about the music, it's about the feeling, it's, like...
It's very technical as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and, like, it sounds a lot better when you're on drugs as well, it's like that sort of stuff, it's like...
That's staying in.
And it's like, because it's all about like how it is within your body, it's about how it sounds in your head, how like it's about the feeling. Whereas with a band like us, it doesn't always sound like nice in your head because sometimes you can't hear my vocals, you can't hear Caitlin's guitar because we're too fucking loud.
Yeah.
It's about like just being interested and being appealed by how we are as people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good point.
I think like for us, we're very lucky in the fact that we don't give a shit, because people like that for some reason. I don't know why.
Punk's so much different to everything else as well. Like you do almost have to have. Do you feel a sense of pressure to have a live presence as a punk band?
Yeah, 100%. Like, for instance, Wild Paths. We were playing with Gaffer, we played with Superglue, Beach Riot, Fight Milk,
That was
Wreck.
such a good line.
All of literally every single band on there, other than Beach Riot, we have played with.
Yeah.
Like usually on multiple times, and there was a real sense of we've got to try and one up every single person that's gone either before us or after us, you know. And it's so good because it's friendly competition.
Yeah.
It's like, you've just played a really sick set. I need to try and fucking play better than you now. And then there's the person after who's like, okay, I need to try and play better than you. I need to try and play better than you. And it just makes everyone better.
You really did feel that, and I think everybody at Karma Cafe that night really did feel like that was the strongest day of music, just back to back. Everyone really complimented each other, and everyone was very, very good.
Yeah, and it's it's like situation. All of the bands that played are friends with each other.
Yeah.
So there's no sort of like bad feeling or anything, Like I love every single one of those bands is the same amount as I love every other band who played there, And it was just so nice to be in like the dressing room with all of us, and we can all have a laugh. And it's like, oh, you going on stage now? Cool. Yeah, you're gonna be shit. It's like, oh yeah, are you going on stage now? Yeah, you're gonna be shit. It's just like being funny with each other and like just having a nice time. I
always find it difficult because, in the sense that you guys are very energetic, and in the sense that you guys are very, I'm not sure what the word is.
Aggressive.
Aggressive is a good word, but not in a negative way.
Yeah.
You're aggressive because that's what complements the music.
I suppose,
Whereas with us, quite well, like that, I've very openly dealt with a lot of mental health issues, and I wear that quite a lot on my sleeve when I'm on stage, and that's something that I find super important, but it's super difficult to do.
You can still pull off a crowd surf.
Yeah, I'm 6'2". I don't know how I managed to pull off a crowd surf.
Why was there catching you?
You're the only one there. It's just you. When does it become a crowd surf? It's just one person lifting it up. That's just
like
dirty dancing. I think we should go for another question because these tangents are going. Elliot, do you want to pick up?
Yes. What am I going to get?
I don't know.
Number 54. Are mainstream lyricists becoming too lazy? Is that right?
Yeah.
Lyricists, is that how you say it?
Yes, I believe.
Are they becoming too lazy?
I think this is a really interesting one because I think you've also, before you can even answer that question, you need to think about the whole idea that actually mainstream lyricists are working in massive teams of maybe 12, 13, 14 writers, and then from what they've come out of their session will then go in front of another 5, 6 writers and then another couple of writers. So actually it's just becoming more and more diluted further up the chain it goes. Yeah. But, what those writers are writing in the beginning could be something incredible, but what comes out the other end
could be something... just be like, blah blah, lights in the sky, beautiful, and then it comes out as "Baby, You're a Firework." Like that is where. At what point does it become sort of almost as if they're quite evidently showing a demographic?
Do we think there's like maybe not to bash it, but do we think, especially with pop music, because
that's predominantly what we're talking about here,
because it is so mass consumed? Do we think there is actually more a case of we don't need to be clever, we just need to sell records with a great hook?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Whereas artists who are doing it for themselves are writing their songs themselves, have a much more of a sense of pride around what they're putting out under their own name. So spend the time to really hone their lyrics and get them to a point they want them.
Yeah. Who's the comedian that does the song? Basically, I think it's Bo Burnham, and he talks about what every Justin Bieber song includes, and it's just like I love your blue and green and brown eyes, and I love the way that your hair is on top of your head, and all of these things. And it's just like they're so almost vague that everyone can then think, oh, that's about me.
I think it's a mega toxic industry, the pop industry. Like, because the pop industry is very different to the rest of the music
100%,
industry.
yeah.
Because it's like fucking like.
Manufactured.
Yeah, exactly. It's like cattle, you know. Like it's just about. Oh yeah, we've got this cow. Yeah, we're gonna make a song out of that. Yeah, let's slaughter it. Yeah, let's chuck that shit out. You know, it's just like. That is just, you know, like the pop industry. It's just chucking shit after shit out, and it's just like, what's going to get into the charts and make us a lot of money?
Yeah.
And I think it's just unbelievably toxic because it makes other musicians think, oh, I need to appeal to my demographic more than what I actually want to write.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've written songs where it's like, oh, we'll use this chord progression because we know that this chord progression works. You know, it's like, and then those are always the songs that do the worst. Because you think about it too much, and because we don't know what the fuck we're doing when it comes down to trying to make songs that appeal to people. You know, it's like, I think the pop industry is so toxic, and it's just the charts, you know, I fucking hate the charts. It's just, I hate pop.
I think that's a good place to leave that question.
I don't know, like, just to kind of chime in with that, because like, we all say that, you know, the chart is this thing that's kind of, you know, so removed from what actual grassroots music and up-and-coming bands is. But actually, if you scored a number 5 hit, you'd be pretty happy, wouldn't you?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's like, I get that, but at the same time, scoring like a number 5 in the charts is like, oh yeah, that's really good. But knowing that there's a team of 30 writers who've just written it for you, and you're basically just the voice of it.
I guess it's the sense of feeling like you've done it yourself at that point if you charted.
Yeah, you know, it's like I loved, for instance, when Rage Against the Machine got to number 1 in the Christmas charts and they beat the X Factor.
Yeah.
You know, that was like a pinnacle moment in the charts history because it was like, it was a fuck you to like.
Moguls
to
in
this
general.
industry.
The issue with that though is that Rage Against the Machine, I believe, was signed to Sony Records at the time, which is the same, which is the same one, which is the same record label association that Simon Cowell had with.
Oh, I see.
Psycho.
So, yeah.
For fuck's sake.
For you guys though, I mean, for me, I was a certain age where I remember when the chart really meant something, and like, I don't know, when I see it now with the incorporation of download and streaming statistics added into it. Do you feel there's something hugely disingenuous about the chart when you see, I don't know, Drake has 8 of his tracks from his new album in the chart because everyone's just streaming them rather than being genuine singles that probably deserve to be there as a release? Or do you think actually that's healthy, that people are, you know, listening to what they want to and that's reflected?
I think going on what you said there about genuine singles, when Ed Sheeran dropped his album, 7 of his singles were off that album were in the top 10.
Yeah.
That to me should have been a one piece of work at probably number 1 because it probably is deserved for the amount of streams and the amount of downloads that it received. But you can't then like dilute the whole chart because then I think the chart basically works on if somebody's interested in an artist, they're going to support them to get to that number 1 spot. And if he's 7 places in that,
personally, I mean, I'd rather see that reflected in the album chart.
Yeah, absolutely.
That his album becomes number 1.
Yeah.
And then they have handpicked maybe a couple of singles. I've got no problem if they've released a single.
Yeah.
Then the other single comes out, sits above it, and the one before it is still in the chart. Fine. You've made a concerted effort to put out something that you really want to be out there. But I think actually, then you just end up with. It sounds really harsh. B-sides in the chart that actually, do they really deserve to be there?
Yeah.
Streaming's great, but it has broken the charts.
Yeah,
100%.
I mean, the reality of figures behind charting now is pretty sketchy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
you don't need to sell a lot of records to chart.
No.
I think as well when it comes down to the charts are so unnecessary now as well. Like, because Spotify is this massive fucking thing, the charts isn't even kind of classed as being much of an important thing anymore.
Well, I think there's so many different charts now. Like, it's become so, you know, convoluted that you're like, well, actually, does it matter?
Oh, we're number fucking 25 in the pop punk surf chart. You know, it's just like.
I mean,
like,
it's a nice thing for people to kind of shout about on their Facebook as something to kind of draw attention, but actually, you kind of look at it sometimes and be like, yeah, and
yeah.
On that point, though, saying that you're 25 in the pop surf chart, do you think the charts are a way to genre define you?
Definitely.
Okay.
I think like with the charts, especially if you talk about the top 100, usually the majority of those songs are going to have the same sort of genre.
Yeah.
Usually, you know, you obviously get the
That's
odd
very
one
true.
that's put in there. Like you might get a Kings of Leon song that's just suddenly been boosted because of whatever it might be, or you'll get, for instance, like a Cream song because Ginger Baker just died.
Yeah.
So then that's just been boosted up. You know, you'll get those odd ones, but you know, I think genre is a very difficult subject.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because
no one wants to be pigeonholed.
no,
really.
no,
Yeah,
it's
that's-
like,
yeah.
and but at the same time, no one wants to be like, oh, what genre are you? No one wants to hear you say, well, we're kind of punky, but we're not like the Sex Pistols, but we're kind of surfy, like kind of Australian surfy. No one is fucking interested. No one gives a shit.
They want that defined thing to just a box you to be able to go,
Yeah.
right, this is what box that sits in
Yeah,
for
yeah,
Austria
yeah.
or whatever else is happening.
But at the same time, you don't want to say we're alternative because you know that fucking 30,000 other people have just put that fucking label on themselves.
I mean,
which
the
you
one
can
that
sound
always
nothing
does
like.
me is the indie title.
Indie.
Because what does indie mean?
Oh,
You're an independent artist.
Yeah.
Pretty much everyone is an independent
Yeah,
artist.
yeah, absolutely.
I find whenever people ask what genre we are, I always just say Fleetwood Mac with Simps. That's what I've landed on at the moment. Right, what I want to do is, because we've been recording for pretty much an hour and a bit, I want to settle on one last question, if that's okay, and just try and tie it all together. And yeah, but yeah, thank you everybody for coming along.
Oh, thank you, man. It's been great.
It's been really good. And I think who'd like to ask the last question?
I'll give it a go. Sure, Chris. Is the one picked for me?
Should we try do the classic unison of all of us say the question at the same time?
I can't read very well.
It'll be terrible. Do you know how many times we've done this in the studio? It's bad.
No.
At this moment, how would you or your band deal with fame?
Well, I feel omitted from this.
Well, it could be fame in terms of like Radio 1 DJ.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
How would you deal with the scrutiny that comes with fame?
I'd probably be such a cunt, you know. I'd be I don't know, if I suddenly got rich and famous, I'd totally trash some hotel rooms
Really?
just for the fun of it.
Oh,
But,
man. I'd have to clean it all up.
I think I'd go into my alter ego. I think I'd do that. I genuinely think I would be my other person. You know? Like, because when I'm on stage, I'm a different person.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, it's like people always say to me, especially, how are you like that on stage? But when you come off, you're so chilled out, and it's like because I'm performing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm an actor. You know, I'm an actor when it comes down to that. I'm just expressing myself, and I don't need to express myself when I'm off stage. So I just think I might, if I were to get into fame, I might become a bit more like that. You know, I might become a bit more kind of, I don't know.
Do you feel you'd lose grip on your own reality?
I
in a
think
way?
so. I don't think fame is a good thing, you know. But at the same time, it's something that I think I kind of strive for.
Yeah. Okay.
I strive to want to have our band known. You know, I don't think like when it comes down to our band, I don't think Caitlin or Elliot would particularly deal with fame very well because they're very introverted people.
Yeah.
Whereas I think I'm quite extroverted when I want to be extroverted, and I think that might come out a bit more if there were a lot of people watching me.
Okay.
You know?
That's
And
a
I,
very
it's
interesting
almost like I want to avoid fame because I
Yeah.
don't want that to happen.
I think fame and knowledge of the band are two very, very different things. And fame can be quite scary. I mean, look at all the people you thought in history had dealt well with fame, and it turns out that they're just normal human beings. Like people like Mac Miller, people like generally the amount of people who've dealt with mental health.
Billie
related
Eilish
issues.
is a big one
Yeah.
Okay.
that I've noticed. There was an interview that she did with, I think, Vice or something. It was
1 year apart.
1 year
Yeah.
apart. It is the most depressing thing I think I've
It's
watched.
really sad, isn't it?
It's unbelievable.
Really?
It's horrible. I hate watching it, and it makes me think I do not want to be in this fucking industry because you are so like fucked up from being like just from having this sudden like influx of people who are so obsessed with her. She's just been so fucked up by it, and she's turned from a 16-year-old like innocent girl into almost like a 30-year-old like who's
Factory machine.
yeah, and she kind of like she gets it, and she like openly like talks about it, and I think
For
it's
someone that
really
age, though,
sad.
it's quite self-aware.
Oh
you
my
find?
god,
Yeah.
yeah. Like I'm so surprised that she is so kind of in touch with herself and understanding of that.
That's how you'd wish to be, I think.
I think it's like a classic example of someone dealing well with fame and how I don't know if I probably wouldn't smash up some hotel rooms. That's more of a throwaway comment, I suppose. But I think someone I've noticed kind of just like watching them grow is idols and Joe Talbot of idols. I think that is probably the perfect way to deal with fame, is actually kind of use it for the betterment of your fans.
Yes.
And actually, making this kind of idea of community, a safe space.
Yes.
And but yeah, opening conversations. I'm not quite sure how to put it best, really, but I think anyone who does know idols in the room is kind of aware of how it's kind of positive thinking.
Getting rid of toxic masculinity, like that's something that I really love that he does, and I think I really relate to that in the sense of when I like speak on stage and so on, I try and at least I almost try and push a certain agenda, you know. Like you push your own personal views, like we try and keep it away from politics as much as we can, even though it's a bit difficult sometimes. But it's just about pushing that sort of like, just don't be a cunt, don't like fucking like grab that girl's ass in the audience without like trying to be seen, don't fucking do that, and if you, it's like with us, we make it very open. If you do that at one of our gigs, we're getting off this fucking stage and we're coming and we're gonna come and fucking like kick you out, and we will point you out and we will tell you to fuck off, because that's something that I think is it's a powerful thing, that when you're in a room and you're on a stage and everyone's watching you, you own that room. And if you say something, people are going to fucking listen to it.
That's true.
So, like, you call people out if they're fucking being a cunt, And it's like, I think it's about, like, having the confidence to say you're wrong, what you're doing is wrong. And I think that's something that Joe does really, really well. And like you can see it in a lot of like live performances. I know Dave Grohl does it. Like when someone's having a fight, it's like, don't have a fight at my show.
The Roundhouse, wasn't it? He's just like, oh, you get out of my show.
You
get the fuck
you
out.
come to my show and you dance. Great.
My favourite example is Akon. Have you seen the video of him? Some guy starts on him in the crowd and he gets him up on stage, picks him up and throws him. It's amazing.
Marilyn Manson's a good one, where he's just like a guy throws a bottle at him and he gets him up on stage. There's a bottle throwing contest and just like gets the whole crowd to throw bottles at this one guy. I've seen people kind of, when it comes to broadcasting, kind of because they've got this responsibility of building up musicians and artists, that it kind of gets a little bit big-headed of them, and that they think that they are like, I don't know, Lord and Saviour of, because they are responsible. They've helped people get to where they are.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can only speak from my experience. You're always going to find people like that in the scene. People who are there for the glory. But then you'd hope that balances out by people who are there for genuine reasons. You know? I think, it's very easy as a broadcaster to get caught up in something that you've played a big part in the hype around. I mean, I'm guilty of calling, Cambridgeshire bands when I was doing that are bands. Because they're bands we work with, they're bands we want to help push. You know? It's not about feeling like you've contributed really to any of their musical kind of endeavours, but when it comes to being able to help them in any way, you want to, because you want to help that scene that you feel affiliated to. And equally, bands who you found at an early, you all know it, that band you found who were well ahead of the curve before they've done anything, you feel really personal about that. You're like, wow, this is a band I've nurtured from the beginning. I think there's definitely a certain amount of that. But I think going back to kind of the fame side of it, I think a big part of responsibility around everyone in the industry is to prepare people for what actually comes with that. Because I'd say there's a difference between fame and celebrity culture. And I think celebrity culture for me is the side of it that is toxic. And I think the people who you look at, who you genuinely respect, the people who you go, they've done it with their fame, are the ones who have maybe shied away from the celebrity side and have kept that network of people around them. The people who were there at the beginning, the people who knew where they come from, who keep them humble and grounded and keep them thinking not with their ego, but just with, their old head and, how they're meant to think. I think that's so important, to have that bubble away from anything like fame or celebrity culture, where you can isolate yourself away from it. Because I know, it's so easy to live and breathe a scene. I did it for 7 years. Like, I wasn't listening to music outside of Cambridgeshire. I wasn't interested. It's not on my radar. Immersed myself in it. So I found myself hugely just so in touch with that,
Yeah,
I think it's important to have these outlets where you can escape to sometimes and, you know, take stock and kind of work out what are you doing with your life. If you have fame, how are you using that in the best ability to actually, you know, serve a purpose rather than it just being about money and, you know, getting your name everywhere and face on magazines, because that helps no one. It just inflates your ego and ultimately leaves you sitting there with an overly sense of importance that you don't need.
I think that's a really good place to end the podcast. I think that's a good message to end on. Just thank you guys so much for coming in and having a talk with us today.
Thank you, man. It's
Good
been
one.
awesome.
If you're listening at home, remember to like the video and subscribe and share with your friends. And if you're a musician in Cambridgeshire, Norfolk, Suffolk, anywhere those various regions, please get in touch. We want you to come on the podcast. And so any last words?
Don't be a cunt.
Yeah.